What's up, my friends? Welcome to the set review. Modern Horizons 3. We're going over all the cards. Alright, every color. We did white, that one's done. We're doing blue right now. Every card, constructed and limited, going over all the formats that are going to affect, like modern, historic, timeless, and more, as well as the draft formats as well. Giving out our rewards as usual. And remind you all real fast, of course, about Bronze Mythic. Oops, that's the wrong one. Well, of course, like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. That's great. Check out 10 new brews happening tomorrow on my birthday. Well, it was my birthday. I turned 40 for somehow. And 10 new brews tomorrow is Historic and Timeless on Arena. And then Moderns on Friday. So splitting it up for those. Also got Bronze Mythic next week on Tuesday, June 11th. And should be a pretty fun set to draft. Looking forward to that as well. And we're going to get into blue here right now real fast. But real fast, we need to run... shit, wrong buttons. Everyone, look over there.
Whoops, whoopsie.
What did I do? I just set a new thing up. So, but first, we're going to hear words from our sponsor, Draftsmith.
In the search for the ultimate weapon, knowledge is power. Introducing Draftsmith, your new secret weapon for Magic the Gathering Arena Limited Mode. Draftsmith helps you pick the perfect card every time by providing an in-depth rating for each card. These ratings adapt based on the cards you've already chosen, making sure you always stay one step ahead of the competition. After the draft is done, Draftsmith recommends the optimal deck based on the cards you have chosen. Know more, win more. Download Draftsmith today from untap.gg.
All right, let's get rocking and rolling here. All right. First card, blue, is Aether Spike. It's just a pretty fun riff there on Force Spike. Then for an instant, choose target spell, you get 2 energy. Then you may pay a number of energy. Counter that spell, as its controller pays 1 for each energy paid this way. So of course, energy returns in this set from Kaladesh, a resource you can gain, and then of course pay for things. So at face value here, we have effectively like a Rune Snag or a Quench, where they have to pay at least 2 if you use both energy. But if you're using energy in other ways, this can bank up energy and counter other things. That being said, the rate here is pretty bad, right? So, as we'll see on other energy cards, you're mostly getting your money's worth. But this card is not mana league, it's Quench. And this is for modern. This is for a very, very powerful format. I think this card's pretty bad overall, honestly. It's okay. It's playable. It's reasonable. If you're making energy other ways, this is a decent way to spend it. But it's not particularly efficient. And I think if you have to spend like 5 of your energy to counter a spell, it kind of sucks too. So I think if this gave 3 energy, it'd be phenomenal. It would be excellent. I guess better than Mana League at that point. But yeah, I don't know. Not a huge fan. I think this card's definitely not good enough for constructed. And if you're limited, I think this card's fine. If you're like blue-white flyers or whatever, looking for a counter spell. But overall, I don't know. Not too big on this one. Amphibian Downpour. Doing it for an enchantment aura. It's got flash and it has storm. So of course, storm means you copy it for each spell cast before it. Enchant creature loses all abilities. It has a blue frog with base power and toughness 1/1. So kind of like a weird blue Wrath of God, right? So I cast a spell, I play Downpour, and then I get to shrink all your creatures into frogs. Note, obviously, it is flash. If your opponent casts spells, you can do that as well. This is obviously a great limited card, right? They go, whatever, play a creature, play a spell, say go, you end step this, make all of our things 1/1s. It's insane. You can do it in combat, which is kind of cool as well. So pretty powerful card for limited, obviously. Constructed, not so much. Just not really an effect that's particularly powerful in constructed. Even if you were to play this for Storm 10 and make all their things into 1/1s, who cares? Just kill them or whatever. So yeah, cool rare for constructed for limited, but for constructed, nah. Bespoke Battle Wagon. 4 mana for a 5/6 vehicle with a bunch of energy stuff going on it. So this thing can tap to get 2 energy. You can tap and pay 2 energy to get target creature. You can tap it and pay 3 energy to draw a card. Or you can just pay 4 energy straight up and crew this. Also crews for 4. This is kind of cute as a way to keep making energy, but it is really expensive and really, really clunky. The fact that it is both a energy maker as well as a payoff is interesting. But that being said, I don't know if you're getting enough here. Crew 4 is pretty absurd. And I spend 4 mana, I just say go. It don't affect the board really at all. I think this card's kind of eh. I think if this card costs 3, maybe it had like Crew 2 or something else, maybe. But there are better ways to make energy. And I think this card's not really particularly a good enabler or payoff. So not a great limited card. Not for constructed, obviously. Brain Surge! Y'all know Brainstorm, right? This is the bigger Brainstorm. So, of course, Brainstorm is one of the best cards in Legacy. Probably should have been banned years ago, but it's just like a staple in the format. And this card is a big version of that. 3 mana for an instant, draw 4, and put back 2. So, this is a powerful card for a number of reasons. One is that obviously if you're digging deep, this card does that pretty well. You can draw 4, put back 2, crack a fetch land. You get the whole Brainstorm thing, right? But for 3 mana and constructed, don't know if that's good enough or not. This can also put Miracle cards on top of your deck too, which is kind of sweet, but not sure on that one. So constructed, maybe a fringe playable card, but not super exciting. However, in limited, this card is something. All right. So the main mechanic in blue, black, and limited is all about drawing cards and triggering abilities for drawing cards. This triggers all of them. All right. All of them. And there are common fetch lands in limited as well. So you can do the whole fetch land Brainstorm thing in limited pretty easily too. So I think it's going to be a absolutely premier card in limited. Constructed, again, I don't think so. You know, maybe in historic, but you need a pretty good reason to want cards back in your deck. This could play in like maybe like a creativity style deck where you have cards you don't want to draw and want to put back into your deck. That could be a thing also, but pretty powerful card. That's a pretty unique thing. Don't cast this card to Bowmaster. That'd be very bad for you. But yeah, cool card for sure. Going to be a good limited card. Excellent in blue-black. Consigned to Memory. 1 blue instant. Replicate 1, meaning you can pay 1 over and over again to keep copying it. Counter target triggered ability or colorless spell. So 1 blue counter a colorless spell is a pretty big deal. I believe we have that card already without Replicate, right? Ceremonious Rejection. And that card sees play in sideboards in Modern time to time. Just as any 1 blue counter a specific type of thing would do. And then you can replicate it. You can counter an Eldrazi's cast trigger. You can counter whatever else triggers. So, kind of a cool card in that respect. Obviously, there are a lot of Eldrazi in the set. So, having the ability to counter the Eldrazi itself and the trigger is pretty unique. So, this card is the kind of card that's cheap enough where it will definitely see sideboard play in Modern or formats at some point if it is applicable. That being said, it may not be applicable. In Limited, there are a decent number of colorless spells, probably more of a sideboard card, but a really good one at that. This is the kind of card that, like, if you're playing a best of 3 drafts, or you want to take this card pretty highly, even though you're probably going to sideboard it, having a sideboard card of this high value is absolutely monumental. So definitely a fringe constructed card and a good sideboard card in limited. Copy Crook. 4 mana for a 0/0. Shapeshifter Rogue. EDB is a copy of any creature in the battlefield, except it has whenever this creature attacks, it connives. So you just have like a clone that connives on attacks. Pretty fine card. Clones are fine and limited, and this obviously has a little extra value too. It does modify the creature, put a counter on it, which is kind of cute if you're playing with white also. And then you have some card draw effects, which would be good in blue-black as well. So cool synergy, and pretty cool. Corrupted Shapeshifter. 4 mana for a star Eldrazi Devoid. Of course, Devoid means that it is a card that has no color, which is relevant on occasion. This can ETB as a 3/3 flyer, a 2/5 vigilance, or an 0/12 defender. This would be obviously a phenomenal card in a regular limited format because it's just sized very well. That being said, in this format, it's going to be probably just okay, honestly. You know, 0/12 is a pretty big butt. Not gonna lie. And 2/5, a good defender, 3/3 good attacker. But overall, I think it's gonna be mostly a filler kind of common for drafts. Deem Inferior. 4 mana for a sorcery. Costs 1 less to cast for each card you've drawn this turn. Affinity for card drawn is pretty cool. Again, part of the blue-black mechanic. And then on a target non-land permanent, puts it from the library, second from the top, or on the bottom. So if I cast Brain Surge, this costs 1. It's kind of the idea with the set. So the card seems fine. If you're playing the blue-black kind of draw card stuff. Obviously, if you just play it on your turn after drawing a card naturally, it's Time Ebb, which is fine too. But yeah, card's fine. Okay, limited card. Not that exciting overall. Deep Analysis. So, once again, this is a card off of the new to modern sheet, where there is a set of cards in this set that are reprints of cards that are not currently legal in modern. Deep Analysis was a big-time card in Extended back in the day, in Standard. Sees a little play in Legacy, not really anymore. But this card's very powerful. So, dump this card in the graveyard, pay 2, draw 2, is pretty awesome. 3 life is not nothing, obviously, but it's a pretty powerful card. Pretty cool tool to have. Interesting to see. This is the kind of card, there are a lot of cards that don't scale particularly great. Like the old school cards like Decree of Justice, where they just aren't good enough anymore. But drawing 2 cards for 2 mana is universal. So this card probably has a pretty decent shot at being playable in certain spots. And just a cool card to have access to, honestly. Just a cool, fun, old card. Love seeing it legal. And then in construct in draft, the front side of this is kind of clunky, but this is draw 4 for 1 card eventually. But it's pretty cool. And if you have any way to connive or discard or whatever else it might be, a lot of good value there too. So, sweet card. Love seeing Deep Analysis back. Depth Defiler, 5 mana for an Eldrazi. This is a 3/5 devoid creature. It has kicker, a colorless. Now it's important to note, there's kind of a 6 color of a set. Alright, so colorless returns. The colorless symbol must be paid by a colorless source. So you can, it is not generic for folks who have not played with the this colorless symbol before. So if I want to play the kicker on this, I have to tap a waste or a land that actually makes a colorless, not just a color. So planes cannot pay for this, okay? If you kick it, you choose both of these, otherwise choose one. So EDB, bounce a creature, or draw to discard a card. So for 5 mana, you get a 3/5 Mana War or a 3/5 Catalog, which is pretty awesome. And if you kick it, you get even more than that. So great limited card. Obviously not playable in Modern or anything like that, but it's a good limited card. Good defensive body. Important to note that red-green and blue-green care about Eldrazi and kind of ramping and stuff. With the blue-green deck specifically being more defensive, wanting to ramp into big idiots, this is a good blocker too. So card's great. Good limited card. Like it a lot. Dreamtide Whale. We got a sleeper, folks. Dreamtide Whale is a pretty weird card. We have a blue 3 mana 7/5. That is huge. Monstrous. However, it has vanishing. Vanishing means that every turn it loses a counter, and when the counters are gone, it goes away. So vanishing 2 means you get 1 attack with it, and then it would die the next turn. However, since whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, you proliferate. Now, obviously, on face value, this can proliferate itself, right? So I untap with this, I attack for 7, I play a Preordain, get another counter on it, and now I can attack again. However, so at face value, like, that's pretty good, honestly. It is not hard for a Modern deck to play 2 spells in a turn, and also common for your opponent to play 2 spells in a turn. So this thing's going to stick around a lot of the time as a 3 mana 7/5, okay? And the extra upside here is that you're proliferating other stuff too. So you can proliferate up your Planeswalkers. You can proliferate up ++1 counters. You can proliferate your Orc army. You can proliferate their Urza Saga to go off earlier when they want it to. That's pretty cool, right? So there's a lot happening here. You're getting an absolutely monstrous body for a very cheap cost. It's pretty easy to keep around. And there's a lot of other stuff that's good as well. I think this card's sick. I think this card's actually pretty awesome. I'm not sure what deck would want it exactly. I think it's also going to be a huge card for Historic on Arena, where the power level is a little bit lower, and a card that can really, really go off. But yeah, I think this card's great. I think this card's really, really cool. You can proliferate energy. Proliferate is one of those mechanics where, like, it just does so many things you don't expect. Very, very powerful. I think this card's awesome and a big sleeper. You heard it here first, folks. Dreamtide Whale, big sleeper. Also, a very good card in Limited, but again, a little harder to cast 2 spells a turn in Limited. So I'd want to have some cheaper cards and counters, things like that too. But yeah, this card's awesome. Big fan. Dreamtide Whale, your sleeper card for blue. Next up is Electrozoa. 3 mana for a 3/1 flying flash. ETB gets 2 energy. Beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you have to tap it unless you play an energy. This card's pretty cool. So obviously, once again, Jeskai colors all care about energy. This one's interesting because I think it's going to play differently than it reads. It reads like a cheap flyer that you want to keep around and attack with. I think this plays more like a removal spell, where they attack you, you flash this in, get some energy and block, and now you've like killed a creature and gained 2 energy for other things going on. So I think that's the primary mode. And the secondary mode is I have this cheap flyer I can attack you with, which is kind of cool too. This card's only going to be great if you're playing a lot of energy cards in your deck. It's obviously a limited card. But if you are, this card does that pretty well. This card's sick. I like this card a lot. Electrozoa, really, really cool limited card. I'm a fan. Emrakul's Messenger is next. 2 mana for a 2/1 flying devoid Eldrazi Fairy Rogue. That's some creepy stuff, folks. That is creepy. And you draw your second card each turn, make an 0/1 Eldrazi spawn token. Of course, that sacrifices for mana. This card's kind of cool in that it is a fine card on rate. 2 and flyer for 2 is obviously reasonable. That plays well in different decks, right? So it's kind of a crossover card. This will play well in your blue-green Eldrazi deck to help you make Scions and ramp up to your big Eldrazi. It'll play well in your blue-black card draw deck as you just kind of make blockers for drawing cards for free. So, good limited card, kind of cool crossover appeal, which is sweet. Constructed play, no, but good solid limited card. Like to see it. Estrid's Invocation is next. 3 mana for an enchantment. You may have as ETB as a copy of an enchantment you control, except it has at the beginning of your upkeep, you may exile this enchantment. If you do, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Weird card, right? So you can copy your own enchantments, and it can blank and copy other enchantments. I mean, I played a Pro Tour like 20 years ago where copy enchantment, which is just this card without the extra text on it, was a playable card. But that was a very, very unique case. It was also a block constructed Pro Tour. So, I don't know. This is actually a new to modern card. I guess this is some commander card I've never seen before. So, sure. But yeah, kind of a weird card. I don't know what you'd want to do with this in constructed. It is reasonably powerful, I guess. But I don't know. And for limited, don't put this card in your deck. Flare of Denial. I feel like I'm going to regret this. But I just couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do for Best in Show for blue. I think this card is a little overrated, to be totally fair. Flare of Denial is the blue flare. So the pitch spells in Modern Horizons 3 are flares. They are pitch cards where the pitch condition is to sacrifice a creature, a non-token creature of a color. And Flare of Denial is just counterspell. Sacrifice a blue creature, counterspell for free. Now, it's important to note also that, like Force of Negation, hard casting this for blue 1 is very reasonable. You know, that's a pretty good buyout. It's not Force of Will, where like 5 mana is just a lot to buy out on. Buying out for 3 mana is fine. It's not bad at all. And what really scares me with this card is obviously Merfolk is the obvious answer. You play Merfolk, you let blue creatures, whatever. What scares me is Prized Amalgam and Narcomoeba. Alright, because those are both blue creatures that come in for free, obviously, and they're easy to return or bring back. And decks like Dredge having the ability to counter a spell is pretty insane, you know. So that scares me as well. Don't denote the fact, or don't notice the fact that this is a very real cost. Sacrifice a blue non-token creature. You know, what deck is going to have access to that, you know, kind of thing. But still, an extremely powerful effect for decks that want it. Card's just good, you know. And again, the floor of being canceled is just not that bad either. So Flare of Denial, I think this card is not going to be as playable for other, like for a lot of different decks. You can't just put this in any deck. Like a Force of Negation goes to anything. Playing blue cards, play Force of Negation. This requires a more subset of things to do, but it is very powerful when it works for in the decks that it does. And in limited, it's basically just cancel. You know, you can sack if you need to, but that's a very bad thing to do. So mostly just cancel. Limited, which is kind of whatever. So Best in Show, Flare of Denial. So you got Harbinger of the Seas is next. This probably could have also gotten Best in Show, but I'm not sure what this is either. We got Magus of the Moon in blue. So blue 1 for a Merfolk Wizard. Non-basic lands are islands. Everyone loves Blood Moon, right? Everyone there loves Blood Moon. So Harbinger of the Seas. Again, if you're playing Merfolk, this works. There's obviously a card you can play in non-Merfolk decks, so just a Blood Moon. However, you need to be playing 2 blue sources, right? If it's not a Blood Moon, you can splash off, you know, when you're playing on the basics. That being said, this card's really annoying, obviously. Blood Moon's a pain in the ass. Very, very annoying. Flood Moon, if you will. And if your opponent can't kill this. Also, important to note that while Magus of the Moon gives your opponent guaranteed red for Lightning Bolt, this does not do that. All right, so probably gonna have a sideboard card. Probably a card you need to respect more than a card you're actually going to like play as often. But yeah, definitely a powerful one. Not a very fun card. Not sure why they printed this card, honestly, but whatever. And then limited, totally unplayable, but is what it is. So Hope Ender Coddle, awesome card. 2 mana for a 2/2, devoid, flash, ETB, Force Spike.
Get off my...
Oh! Who loves a good Force Spike, right? As an uncommon, this card's great. In any blue deck in limited. If this thing counters the spell, you are going to be extremely happy about it. Going to be absolutely insane. You know, Mystic Snake, Flash Flyer, etc., etc. It is not an ETB either, so that's kind of a good thing and a bad thing, where you can't like blink this and counter spells, you know. But yeah, really powerful card. Just a little force spike action. Gotta be fun trying to play around this card, and then yeah, card's just sick. Awesome card, great limited card, love it. Hydroelectric Specimen. So now, of course, we have our MDFC cards, the lands that are cards that are spells on one side, lands on the other. And the Specimen here is a 3-mana flash 1/4. When it ETBs, you may change target of a instant or sorcery with a single target to this. It's kind of like a flag bearer ability, kind of cool. Obviously, a really good limited card because almost all MDFCs are good limited cards, and this is a pretty good card in general. Just like steal your pump spell, steal your removal spell. That's awesome. Constructed, I mean, probably not. You know, it's obviously okay. It's not a bad blocker if you're playing like a oops all spells kind of deck. But yeah, kind of cool. And then of course the backside is pay 3 life untapped or enters tapped, which is very, very powerful. Much better than only enters tapped. It's a huge game. Next up is Kappa Cannoneer, and this card's real good, folks. All right, so this is a card that sees play in Legacy. And this is a card that is an absolute house. It is a new to modern card. And it's a kind of card where, if you haven't seen it play before, you might not realize how good it actually is. 5 mana for a 4/4. Has Improvise. So you can tap your artifacts to cast this spell, making it easy to cast. Has Ward 4. 4 so much. Whenever it or another artifact ETPs under your control, put a +1 counter on this, and it can't be blocked this turn. So, it's not a 4/4. This is a 5/5. All right, it ETBs and immediately gets a counter. And if you're playing Affinity, you play this early. It's very, very hard to kill. It's very, very hard to block. So you play this thing. It's a 5/5. Next turn, play an artifact, attack for 6, unblockable. Play artifact, attack for 7, unblockable. That's a game. You know, so really, really powerful card in terms of like Affinity style decks. The one interesting thing here is the tension between this costing only 6 and some cards caring about cards costing 7. We'll get more of that later. But yeah. Really, really good card. Ward 4 is absolutely insane. This is going to be a serious player in Modern. A great limited card. There isn't really much artifact stuff in blue, but there are artifacts. The main artifact theme is in Rakdos. And it's kind of weird because it's like only really in Rakdos. But if you improvise this thing for 1 or 2, you know, extra mana, it's pretty insane also. So, good limited card. Obviously, it's pretty great. Constructed card, unbelievable. Really powerful card. Blastoise here is pretty sweet. Speaking of cards that care about things that cost 7 or more, we have one of perhaps the most debated and difficult to evaluate cards in the entire set here in Kozilek's Unsealing. 3 mana for an enchantment with Devoid. Whenever you cast a creature spell, the mana value 4, 5, or 6, you make 2 0/1 Eldrazi spawn tokens that can sack for a colorless. Whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 7 or greater, draw 3 cards. So now, of course, the big trick here is that Mirror Enforcer, Sojourners, whatever it's called, and the new Frog Mirror Enforcer are all affinity cards that cost 7 you can play for free. And if you keep drawing more of them, you can keep casting them off this card, which sounds absolutely busted, but presents a lot of deck building issues, you know? So, this is a weird one. This is a very, very weird card, potentially insanely explosive. Potentially just does nothing, too, right? So, I don't know what to make of this one. I was too timid to give this card a best in show or a sleeper pick or a trap pick because I really just don't know until I play with this card. I guarantee one of my 10 new brews will have this card in it. Maybe 2, honestly, because this card's pretty crazy. So I'm not sure. Let's do this card, you know? The big thing about this card is that up front, 3 mana does nothing, which is a kind of a thing, but couldn't go off here. You can also delve with this card too. Cards like Gurmag Angler can trigger it as well. Tolarian Terror and Friends. So I don't know. 3 is a lot. All right, 3 is a lot of cards, and that's pretty scary. We'll see. This is an interesting one for sure. In Limited, I don't think this card gets there unless you're playing a bunch of 7 drops. But I don't know. Not sure. Blue-green's a weird archetype. Petrify Meddler. 5 mana for a 4/5 Devoid. If you cast a spell, tap a creature, put a stun counter on it, and it's got Reach. Is that Bergstrider? Oh, I love Bergstrider. This is like a limited card, honestly. 4/5 Reach for 5. That ETBs, the stun thing is great. This is good offensively. It's good defensively. Helps keep you alive to ramp into things. I'm not sure why it's a blue card with reach.
Inconceivable.
First ever, I think. Although I guess not technically blue. Given that it has Devoid, right? It's not technically, whatever. But yeah, good limited card for sure. Great card to curve top if you're being aggressive, or great card to just keep you alive if you're being defensive. Card's great. Good limited card. Like it a lot. Not a card you're going to play a ton of or take super early, but like it a lot. Reform, another new to modern card. It's a fun commander card. 4 mana for an 0-1. When it dies, make a 3-3 if it has. When it dies, make a 6-6 if it has. And when it dies, make a 9-9. Not bad, right? Obviously bad against exile effects, bad against bounce spells, but pretty good limited card, you know. I would love to want this thing to die immediately somehow. There aren't really any sack synergies, though. Again, you know, the colors in this set, the Jeskai colors care about energy. The Abzan colors care about modified stuff. Then you have black Rakdos artifacts, blue-green Eldrazi, red-green Eldrazi, and Dimir card draw. None of those really sack things that well. So not a particularly good sacrifice, you know, theme going on, but still a cool card. Definitely a good limited card. There's a few emerge cards you can sacrifice, which is kind of cool. Plays well there, but mostly just a cool limited card. Nothing really more. Royal Cartographer, 2 mana for a 1-3. Landfall, make an energy. That's really good. This is a great enabler for energy stuff. And you can pay 6 and draw 3. That's a good payoff, too. You know, if you're flooded with energy later in the game. But I think this card's great. I think this card, if you are an energy deck, this card's absolutely awesome and limited. Really, really good. Constructed, I don't think so. I mean, like, fetch lands are pretty powerful. So, like, play this thing, play a fetch land, gets you energy immediately. Is kind of cool, but probably not good enough for modern, obviously. But for limited, this card's an absolute house. And again, there are common fetch lands in this set as well. So this card's going to be an absolute house. I would say mythic level, uncommon, and limited. Royal Cartographer, card's really, really good. Next up, Sage of the Unknowable. We have 2 mana for an 0-4. That's a big booty. Tap to add a colorless. This mana can only be used to cast colorless spells or activate abilities. So, obviously a cool card if you're like the blue-green ramp deck. You know, if you're blue-green ramping for Eldrazi, this card does pretty well with that. 0-4 is a great buy at a mana dork, right? But you got to have a lot of colorless things to do with this. Note this is also a source of colorless mana. When we get to the colorless section, there are cards you need to spend colorless for things. You can only do that if you have colorless. A plains won't do it, an island won't do it. So this card does that as well. Just solid. Just a good solid little draft common here. Constructed, yeah, probably not, but card sweet. Serum Visionary. You get it? It's like Pondering Mage. You get it's Serum Visionary, 3 mana 4, a 2/2 ETB, cast Serum Visions, draw a card, scry 2. Obviously a good limited card because a 2/2 that draws a card is great. And not much else to say here. Not really any synergy here. Doesn't fall under the archetype except for the blue-black archetype by drawing cards. But yeah, good draft card. Nothing more. It's a fun joke. Get the idea. Shadow of the Second Sun. 6 mana mythic enchantment aura. This enchants a player. Beginning of each player's post-combat main phase, there is an extra beginning phase. So extra untap, upkeep, and draw. What? What a weird magic card. All right, so you get to untap all your stuff again, and you get to wait. Hold on. Yeah. So this triggers the beginning of your post-combat main phase, but it doesn't happen until the end of the phase. So once you pass your second main phase, you go. It basically goes past the main phase, untap, upkeep, draw, end step. I believe that is the step. So you will draw an extra card, you will untap your lands, and you will trigger any upkeep abilities. That is obviously quite powerful, but this is a very, very strange card. Again, untapping all your lands is pretty sweet. It's sort of like a Wilderness Reclamation that also draws you a card, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I think this is like, I don't think this card will be playable in Modern. This is the kind of card that might be good in Historic, like a lower power format. But yeah, probably more of a Commander card. In Limited, this card's like weird because like 6 mana Holly Mine's like not the best, I don't think. But yeah, no, it does not give you your entire turn. It gives you just the beginning step. So again, you go post-combat, untap, upkeep, draw, end step. So you need to be doing other things to make this card good aside from just drawing an extra card. So yeah, weird card. I don't know. I'm too dumb for this, basically. That's all I got for you, all right? I'm not smart. I can't figure this card out. Someone else will. Doubt it's going to be much of a player in anything but a commander, but yeah. Shrinking Drake. Old school boomer card. 1 mana for a 1/1 flyer. ETB, bounce creature you control. This card's obviously been power crept out in recent years. Nurturing Pixie, it was in the last set. It's 2/2, exact same card. You can bounce permanents as well. So, obviously not quite there on power level. Fun old card, though. This is kind of a classic old card. It's from Visions. Old school Magic card. Pretty fun as far as like bouncing your ETBs and stuff. But the body is pretty bad. If you bounce like a Serum Visionary, you know, play it again, draw a card. That's cool, but body's small. Probably not really a factor anywhere, but it's cool. I like this card. The one important part about this card is that it is a combo card. If you have a way to make blue mana over and over again, you can keep playing it and bouncing itself. It does not have a templating where it can't bounce itself like Pixie does, but it's also like pretty weird. So maybe if there's like like the Allurin, there's the Energy Allurin, and then the creature that says whenever you play a creature you get an energy, or maybe you could like keep playing this for free and get an infinite storm count. I don't know. Possibly a cool combo card, but pretty cool. It is infinite life with the Energy Soul Ward and the Allurin. But there are probably better Allurin combos, but yeah, cool card. Sink into Stupor. I didn't give this card an award, but folks, this is probably one of the better cards in the set for anyone looking for an MDFC that does something good, right? If you're playing Oops All Spells, if you're playing Belcher, if you're playing whatever deck is not playing lands for whatever reason, this is like one of the best MDFCs there is, right? Blue 1, return a spell or a non-land permanent. So bounce your Hate Piece, bounce your Rest in Peace, bounce your Pithing Needle, whatever it might be. But it's also a land for your Belcher deck or your Oops All Spells deck or whatever else. So yeah, this card is definitely the real deal. I pick this card up. This card in foil is going to be valuable also because people love their Oops All Spells decks or whatever in Legacy and Modern and so on and so forth. Yeah, card's a big deal. Good limited card, it's fine. Probably won't see play outside of that context, but a big deal for those contexts. Strict Serenade, 1 blue instant, counter an artifact, creature, or planeswalker spell. As controller makes 2/2 bird, token with it flying. What makes this different from Swan Song? What does Swan Song counter if the start does not? So, obviously kind of like a cool hate card where it's super cheap way to stop a creature combo deck or the One Ring or an artifact or whatever. I know Swan Song, it's enchantments, I think, and spells and stuff too. But yeah, we've seen cards like this before. It does different things, but similar idea if you're looking for a cheap way to counter things. Apparently this is the opposite of Swan Song. Okay, sure. So, sure. Can see play occasionally if it like needs to be done. If it needs to be like a super cheap way to counter a thing. But giving your opponent 2/2 is very, very bad if you're trying to beat down. So, I don't know. Similar to Swan Song. Swan Song is counter enchantment, instant, or sorceries. It's the exact opposite of Swan Song. Sure. So, yeah. Similar space to Swan Song. Not super playable. Cool commander card, I guess. And then limited, do not play this card. Tamiyo meets the Story Circle. We got a Saga. 2 mana. Until the end of your next turn. Until your next turn. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, it gets -2/-0 on a turn. Very powerful effect. Chapter 2 is discard any number of cards, investigate twice for each card discarded this way. And then Chapter 3 is shuffle 3 target cards from a graveyard into your library. I mean, like, kind of a cool limited card where you play it, they can't really attack for a turn, discard a random card you don't want or to. I mean, if you discard 2 lands, make 4 clues, that's a lot of card bench in a longer game, but it is very slow. It can make a lot of artifacts if you had like some sort of combo deck that wanted to like put a bunch of artifacts in play. Say you had to like, I don't know exactly, but discarding cards is a huge cost. So, not sure about that. And shuffling cards back is kind of cool for like a slow limited deck. So, I think if you're like a slow limited deck, this card's kind of sweet. But I'm not sure what draft deck would want this card given the archetypes we have. But it's cool. Cool limited card. Cool one to mess around with and work on. Tamiyo proper. No wards, but this card's pretty good. 1 blue, 0/3 flyer, Moonfolk Wizard Legend. Of course, this is one of the Flipwalkers, one of these in each color. This shows a Planeswalker pre- and post-Spark. So whenever Tamiyo attacks, you investigate, make a clue. This is pretty good. Whenever you draw your 3rd card in a turn, you can flip this and return to the battlefield transformed under its owner control. So, pretty easy condition to flip, right? Obviously, in Legacy, one Brainstorm does it, but not hard to like play a Ponder, or not a Ponder, play a Preordain, boom, you're flipped kind of thing. All right. Flips over into Tamio Seasoned Scholar. 2 loyalty, +2 until your next turn. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, gets -1/-0. Ability that's better than it looks, honestly. Pretty powerful ability. -3, return an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. If it's green, add a mana. So we have kind of like similar to Jace Farin's Prodigy here, of like giving a flashback effect. And then -7, draw cards equal to half the number of cards in your library, rounded up. You get an emblem with you have no max hand size. That's a pretty wild ability, honestly, and it isn't like that difficult to get to, considering you can flip it on turn 2. So this is a really weird card. You know, as far as raw power level and rate goes, it's pretty good. You know, this is effectively like an 0/3 flyer for 1 that draws a card every turn for some mana. So if you don't kill it, you just keep drawing cards in limited, which is great. Construct it a little slower, but still pretty good. It also makes an artifact every turn. So if you're playing Urza, if you're playing Affinity stuff, I don't know, whatever. If you need artifacts in play, that's pretty powerful too. So it's a cheap way to do that. And then it's not that hard to flip it over and do some cool stuff. Some flashback stuff as well. You know, I don't think the instant and sorcery stuff plays super well with the artifact stuff. But it does play well with the card draw flip thing too. So I don't know. Again, these flip planeswalkers are, it's a freaking lot to take in. Very, very hard to parse. This card does seem very good though. Is it Ragavan? I don't know. I don't. Is it like the busted card of a set? I really don't know, honestly. It does seem quite powerful, but I'm not sure. It does play well with Urza and other things as well. This is the kind of card we got to play. You know, you got to kind of just play this card and see how it feels. Definitely will see this card in 10 New Brews for sure. Probably in multiple decks across the 2 formats and stuff. So there you go. And yes, Tamio is dead. Modern Horizon sets are just like, you know, not set to any current time frame. It's just cards from whatever. So next up is Tempest Harvester. 2 mana for a 2/1. When ETB gets 2 energy, you have to pay an energy to loot. This card's fine, honestly. Again, like I said earlier, cards that gain energy and just like trade off, so you just like are left over with energy, are pretty awesome. So obviously not a card for constructed, but a pretty good limited card. You know, play it, block with it, trade off, keep the energy. You can loot if you need to. Pretty cool too. Good solid 2-drop unlimited. Triton Wavebreaker, 1 mana for a 1/1, has Bestow, so you can put it on a creature, and then it has a 1/1 prowess, and then also gives the creature it is put onto prowess. It's important to note also that if you bestow this, it counts as a spell on a creature, so it'll trigger prowess on other stuff too. So kind of cool in that like it's a cheap prowess creature that can also augment your other prowess creatures, which is kind of cool. That being said, don't know if there's really a market for a 1/1 blue prowess creature in Modern, but kind of cool. Also a wizard, so this card might see play in Historic, stuff like that as well. And then of course, if you're playing on a Wrath, you can like put this on your creature. If your creature dies, it falls off into a creature, which is kind of cool. So yeah, so there you go. Triton Wavebreaker, pretty cool card. Good fine card for limited too, honestly. Most bestow cards are pretty good in limited, so very reasonable. Prowess is stacked too, yes. Tune the Narrative, folks. We've seen this story before, folks. All right. Tune the Narrative is a 1 blue instant. Draw a card, get 2 energy. You know what card was banned in Standard? A 2 with Aether. 1 green, get a land, get 2 energy. All right. Slapping this this energy onto a draw card effect for so cheap is insane. And I think this is a card that could make energy a deck in Modern if it ends up being a deck. Card like this and the White Wrath and stuff. This is it. This is the glue. This is the big deal. In limited, this might be the best blue common, hence the Bombin Common thing. Similar to Birthday Escape in Lord of the Rings, where Birthday Escape was 1 blue draw card, ring tempts you, just so cheap for what you're getting at such a low opportunity cost. And then in limited also, like, this is a prowess trigger. This is an extra draw for your Dimir decks. This is just like the card. In limited, this card's insane. And constructed, this card has a real chance of making energy a relevant thing. This card's a huge deal. One of the biggest deals in the set, I think, as far as energy goes. And card's great. 2-minute narrative. Not much to say. It's simple and it greases the wheels. And when you do it for cheap, that's a big deal. Also an instant. Card's insane. Bombin Common, Tune the Narrative. Next up is Ugin's Binding.
It's a trap!
The mana for an instant, Devoid. Return target non-land permanent you don't control its owner's hand. Or if you cast a call a spell, mana value at 7 or greater, exile this, and then Cyclonic Rift everyone else. Commander card? Sure. Cool. Whatever. Modern card? Constructed card? Nah, I don't think so. We already have Kozilek's Return, which is a similar kind of effect where it's good early, and then you can play it for that later. But bouncing all your opponent's stuff is not really that big of a deal in Modern. The 7 mana spell you're casting is much more important than bouncing their stuff. You might bounce their Leyline Binding. And like they just binding the new thing you played. I might not have things in play that matter that much. And then also you might just die before you use it. And then casting the front side of his card is absolutely terrible. Whereas Kozilek's Return might kill some small stuff and be a decent sweeper. This card is just slow as shit and just really, really clunky. There aren't a lot of decks in Modern that make some huge board. And the ones that do will probably kill you before you get a chance to get this thing back. So I think it's the most just a Commander card, honestly. A lot of hype here because everyone thinks Cyclonic Rift's insane. It is insane in Commander, but it's not a Modern card. Not a Modern card, not a constructed card, which I think this card is not. In Limited, this card's great. Obviously, if you're playing Blue-Green Ramp, this card's awesome. But yeah, not really a card for constructed, I don't think. And that's your trap card for blue, Ugin's Binding. Unfathomable Truths. 5 mana instant Devoid, draw 3, make a spawn token. It's an okay limited card. Not great, not the worst. Obviously, drawing 3 cards for 5 mana is solid if unexciting if you're looking for that sort of effect. A little bit of ramp in there too. Could be a chump blocker as well. If you just cast this, chump block a 5/5 and draw 3, it's not bad either. So card's reasonable. Good limited card. Plays well also in the blue-black Dimir deck that wants to draw cards for triggers and stuff. But yeah, fine limited card. Not too different than we've seen before. Utter Insignificance. 2 mana for an enchantment aura. It's got flash. Creature loses all abilities. There's a 1/1. Pay 3 to exile it with a colorless. Important to note. Card's good. This is a good blue removal spell, honestly. These sort of make your thing into a frog cards are fine and limited anyway. And having that buyout of exiling it for some extra mana is pretty cool too. So good card. Good draft card for sure. Constructed, no, obviously, but good limited card. Will play well in your blue-green Eldrazi decks. Volatile Storm Drake. Okay, pour one out here for Gilded Drake, right? We got 2 mana for a 3/2 flying, hexproof from activated and triggered abilities. When it ETBs, exchange control of this and target creature and opponent controls. If you do, you get 4 energy, and then you sacrifice that creature unless you pay an amount of energy equal to its mana value. All right, so very different card than Gilded Drake. So Gilded Drake was a 3/3 that just came into play and swap with your opponent's creature. That card used to see play in old formats against Reanimator and stuff like that, where they put a Grizzleband in play, you play the Drake and swap it, steal it. This card kind of can't do that because you're locked in on the number of energy you have, so you can't take a 7-drop without having other energy sources. That being said, if you play this thing on an empty board, you get a 3/2 flyer with a little bit of protection there because there's nothing else in play. Is that good? Not really. So I don't know. This card's okay. If you're looking to steal your opponent's stuff for some reason, sure, you can do that, but not the most exciting card. It just kind of is what it is. And then in limited, if you're making a lot of energy, you can steal a big creature, sure. But giving them a 3/2 kind of sucks, So I don't know. Card's okay, but. So recap in blue. Best in show is Flare Denial. Our sleeper card is Dreamtide Whale. Our trap card is Ugin's Binding. And our Bombin Common is Tune the Narrative. We're all wrapped up, folks. That's blue. You know what's next? Black and the rest of the set review. You folks, like, comment, subscribe. Support the content. Please, if there's a content creator that you like and you want to see him succeed, it's very simple, folks. Interact. Like things. Leave comments all the time. Hit play, hit like. Don't be stingy. Helps out a ton. Let's go. Black's coming up.